Hey guys, it's Ryan. So today I'm going to be talking about a different sort of subject. Now I have ideas for other videos later this year, so look forward to them. But for now I'm going to be dedicating a certain video to someone I happened to lose a year ago. So today we're going to be talking about a bunch of sports games.
So first up, we have the Black Bass, which was made by Hot B and came out in 1986 on the Famicom. Now don't get this confused with the Black Bass on the NES, that's actually the sequel to this game. Here in North America, it's just called the Black Bass or the Black Bass USA. As you might expect, this is a fishing game, and honestly it's pretty bare bones. You play as a fisherman whose goal is to catch as many fish as possible. Each day you are set upon a lake that is based off of an actual Japanese location. The game lasts for 5 days, and each day you must have a certain amount of weighted fish caught or else the game is over. If you make it to the end of the 5th day, then you win. You have the freedom to move your character wherever you want on the lake's surface, and you can switch out your lures between casts. Once you're at your spot, you press B to gather power and hit the A button to cast your line. While fishing, you can maneuver your lure in such a way that the fish have a chance to go after it. What movement pattern, what lure to use, and what fish to use it on is really the challenge that this game brings to the table. This game is basically trial and error, which is quite different for something made in 1986, but to be honest, it's rather boring. I mean, how many times can you cast out your line, hoping you have the right combination, then reel back in nothing until you fall asleep? The few times I actually got a nibble, I tried to reel it in, only to find my line breaks and I lost my lure in the process. It might just be because I'm not a fishing enthusiast, but this game isn't all that great. I do like the fact that you can choose different seasons to fish in, and depending on what part of the lake you are in, the environment alters a little bit to simulate different areas like the shore or the swamplands. The graphics are alright for what it is. There's not really a lot of music. A short soundbite will loop when you're in the middle of fishing, and the title does sound good, but you might just mute the volume because the sounds your character makes while you're fishing can get a bit annoying. You make a beeping noise when you're traversing the lake and when you're reeling in your line. I really think the developer should have just removed the beeping sound. It's constantly graining in your ears like nails on a chalkboard. I think I'd personally have more fun with the game if the manual was also translated in English just like the ROM. Maybe then I would get some tips on what combinations to use during gameplay. It would also help if there was some kind of context to why you're participating in this game anyways. Now I know a sports game doesn't really need a story, but I always find it motivating when I can get at least one reason to play through a game. Everyone's probably better off playing the sequel we got in the States instead of this. It's supposed to be a far superior game to the first one. I'd guess this never left Japan because they thought it wouldn't sell worth shit, or they thought localization for the upcoming sequel would have been a better use of their resources. Either way, let's move on. So now we're going to talk about Major League. So there's a bit of an interesting story about this game. It was originally meant to be released in the United States as a movie tie-in game with a 1989 film. For some reason though, this ended up staying in Japan. This game came out the same year as the film and was developed by Irem Corp. It is a standard baseball game from what I can tell. Nothing really sticks out as innovating or interesting compared to what else was on the Nintendo. The main game is a regular one player versus the computer or a human opponent. You get to pick your team and switch your character's positions before starting the match. I don't have a fucking clue what these teams are supposed to be. They're just represented as letters during the selection screen. For recording purposes, I decided to have the Michael Bolton team face off against the Angelina Jolie team. I don't think I really have to explain how baseball works, so I'll talk more about other aspects of the game. Your character looks really weird, like they were trying to make Looney Tunes characters using an anime style, which doesn't really work well on the Famicom. I assume certain people are meant to look like the actors from the movie, but they seem so out of place it just seems odd that they'd be included to begin with. The animation is fine for the most part, and there's not really any slowdown during the action. The music is typical baseball fanfare. A catchy tune plays at the title screen to get you roused for America's pastime. There's also a song during the game that sounds well enough. I'm probably just bad at the game, but I think the opponent AI is just a little bit too good. It seems like every time I'm up to bat and I manage to hit the ball, the outfielders instantly read where it is and I end up getting it out. Then when I'm in the outfield and they end up smashing the ball, I can never catch it in time to pass to first base before they're safe. The only other modes this game offers is batting practice and watching a match, which lets you see the computer versing against itself. It's not the most exciting thing to witness, but it can really bring out the fanboy in you to see your favorite single or double letter team in action.
Oh, come on! That was an easy ball! You fucking had that shit!
Okay, so I just watched the movie, and after seeing it, I can imagine why this would never come to the States. It has a lot of swearing and a very adult theme to it. That itself isn't why I think it stayed in Japan. I mean, games like Rambo and Friday the 13th came here. I really think the big roadblock was getting licensing rights from the MLB. The use of the Cleveland Indians in particular is used throughout the movie a lot. On the select screen, I think that's supposed to be Charlie Sheen's character. It totally looks like Major Hughes from Full Metal Alchemist, though. As for the mascot, I have no clue where that comes from. There's nobody dressed like that in the movie anywhere. You know, now that I think about it, isn't that supposed to be Willie Mays Hayes and Pedro Serrano? Pedro looks okay, I suppose, but what the fuck is wrong with Willie? He looks like a goddamn fish. Man, this game is just one big hot mess. It's probably for the best this never left Japan. It's just another filler baseball game on the Nintendo. At the end of the day, you're better off playing literally any other baseball game. This is Pocket Billiard, Funk the 9-Ball. It was released by Tamsoft on the Game Boy Color February 19th, 2000. At its core, it's a billiards game on the go, but it has some unusual mechanics that actually make it rather fun. You start the game filling out a card with your information on it, like your name, birthday, and all that junk. Then you get to choose between two different characters, one who wears a dog suit and one that wears a frog suit. I don't know what the fuck that shit's about. So once you make your decision, you're thrown into a pool hall with 4 different tables. Each one is used for a different style of play. The first one lets you play against opponents with increasing difficulty and is really the only mode worth playing. The gimmick is you play a version of billiards called 9-Ball, which means you must hit the lowest number ball in a pocket before you get the 9-Ball. The twist is you have these little creatures hidden inside some of the balls, and they can cause certain effects during the game, like allowing you to take a second shot with your cue during your turn, or by freezing balls in place, making them harder to hit. Before the match begins, you can assign up to 3 monsters to hide inside certain balls. Your opponent also is allowed the same 3 balls. You have to be a bit worried about placing a powerful creature inside them, because if your opponent nabs your assigned monster in a pocket, they'll end up with the advantage instead of you. You and your rival's game ends when someone has 3 wins, and as a reward you get to keep one of their creatures. It's like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the victor obtains a card from the loser. I quite like this change up to the game. It's a refreshing take on an old game of 9-Ball that I wish other sports games would do. In between the action, you can talk to a few NPCs like the robot at the counter, the DJ, and the fortune teller. The robot gives you information about each table and hints on how to play efficiently. He also lets you change the colors of the pool hall and the tables. The DJ can change the music that's playing in the hall if you have the disc for it. Unfortunately, the discs are a bit hard to find and the music doesn't play during the match. Finally, the fortune teller will tell you a prediction about the upcoming game. The rest of the content this game offers is really just filler. The second table just lets you play a standard game of billiards with the rules everyone already knows. The third table is for a link cable match between 2 Game Boy Colors, and the last table is just for practice. There's also a bit of a collecting aspect to this game, as you can get objects during gameplay and view them in the menu whenever you want. It kind of takes a page from trading card games, where part of the fun is trying to get all the pieces in a set. If you enjoy billiards, this would have been a nice little game to pull out whenever you're on the road, but that appeal has long since faded since it first came out 20 years ago. I can only think this never left Japan because it was a little bit too weird for American audiences to gravitate towards. This also came out rather late for a Game Boy Color game. I mean, the Game Boy Advance was already revealed to the public 5 months prior to its release. From a business point of view, it was much smarter to focus on future projects and leave Pocket Billiards behind. It's not something you'll go back to again and again, but it's an interesting game that goes against the grain. At last we come to probably the most interesting game of the bunch, Battle Golfer UE. This came out for the Genesis February 15th, 1991. Santos was the developer and Sega published it. This is a golf game with a mishmash of generic 90s anime's plots and RPG elements. The game starts with a cutscene of 2 high school girls named Yui Mizuhara and Ran Ryuzaki being abducted and about to be brainwashed until some guy busts through the labs and manages to rescue Yui and escape in time, but unfortunately was not able to help the other girl. As Yui, you enter the golf tournaments and face off against a number of rivals to uncover the truth about Ran Ryuzaki's whereabouts. This plot point is really your own personal reason to enter this dangerous world, but the real threat in the game is this Dark Hazard organization, who are a group of people who try to rule the world using enslaved cyborg golfers. Before each match, you'll have to engage in dialogue with your competitor where you ask about certain subjects. This will usually trigger further points of interest during your conversation and allow you to learn a bit more about each character's personality. After all the available options are explored, your match will begin. The golfing is what you'd expect for the most part. You select your club and what part of the ball to shoot. You adjust the power of your swing and angle, while also keeping in mind the wind speed and direction, and you try to get into the hole with as few strokes as possible. For each person you encounter, you face off in 3 different courses. and whoever is in the lead shot-wise is the winner. Now here's where it gets a bit interesting. You get special skills throughout the game from each foe you defeat. Each time you win a round of golf, you gain experience, and when you level up, your mana pool is extended, allowing you to use more skills. Now the most basic of skills is just a sharp curved shot or a power boost to your swing, but there are more situational techniques you learn as you progress through the story. The graphics and sound are just fine for an early Genesis title. The courses are quite detailed, and most of the ones you see during gameplay have unique properties. The characters you interact with lack any real depth that you would expect in a traditional RPG, but they have just enough quirkiness for them not to be boring. I haven't heard a lot of music tracks in the game, but the couple that play in and out of the matches are pleasant. My only real gripe is that the game has a high learning curve. Even the first person you face can kick your ass without much trouble. I mean, I get they're supposed to be top tier golfers, but come the fuck on. They hardly ever make any mistakes, and they always seem to make par or get a birdie on every course. The skills you earn from previous games are a nice asset, but for the first half of the game, you're better off just playing like normal. Now the game will give you a break and provide a password between rivals, and you can go back at certain points to grind experience. Still, I think the AI could have been adjusted a little bit. If you're playing this on an emulator like me, I'd highly recommend using save states between rounds, and you'll end up having less frustration when you get a game over. I can see why this never went overseas, but it's not the worst game on the Genesis. Apparently Famitsu gave it a 17 out of 40 in the review, and Joystick gave it a 35% review score. It seems no one liked this game, and considering I can't find any information on the developer, it is possible this was their only game before bowing out of the industry. This could have been a staple series for Sega if it had more polish to it, but instead it just ended up being dust in the wind.
Well, that's all the games I have to review for now. I could go on and on. There are definitely a lot more Japanese sports games to talk about, but I just kind of wanted to get this out of my system to, kind of remember a person in my life that passed away. This person in question didn't actually play video games per se, but he was a really big sports enthusiast. I mean, this hat should probably tell you everything you need to know. But anyways, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to do whatever you want to do, and I'll see you guys later.